This week on the Face Off, Quanell, we talked about corruption in the city of Houston and a guilty plea by a long-standing aide to the mayor, a 14-year-old city employee, and the corruption in the county that centers around the office of Judge Lina Hidalgo. She is now refusing to meet her opponent, her Republican opponent, Alex Mueller, in a debate, says it's not worth her time. I think we are seeing unprecedented public corruption. And while we don't know how far the corruption in the city goes, right? There's been no link to the mayor's office by any means, and I don't want to assume it's there. On the county level, there's very, very clear links to Judge Hidalgo's staff, her chief of staff, and this office, and it's
so
alarming.
You really believe that William Paul Thomas, a gentleman who I know, grew up watching in city politics and state and government politics, has been the mayor's right-hand man, was Anise Parker's right-hand man, Master Vester Turner's right-hand man, and yet there's no links to the mayor's office? He is a key link in the mayor's office that represents corruption. And now he's pled guilty. He's not even challenging the charges, and has agreed to cooperate with the United States government to bring forth other corruption information and to bring forth other things that have taken place that the government may be already investigating, but now he can be the linchpin to solidify the truth of those facts. Then you saw a former housing director who resigned and publicly stated because the bidding process was rigged. Those who are getting housing contracts and getting access to housing funds from the taxpayers, that it was corrupt, and these contracts were going to friends of the elected officials who were campaign contributors and who had direct personal private relationships. Now you look at Lina Hidalgo's office. 3 of her top aides are involved in corruption in her office with contracts. Do you really believe, Charles, that 3 of her top aides were involved in something like that, and she was totally blind as Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder to the truth of what they were doing? Look, it's a disgrace what is taking place in Houston Harris County politics. A Fox poll done right here state, do you believe that city government is corrupt? And 99% of the respondents at the beginning of that poll said yes. And we wonder why so many tens of thousands of Houstonians never go to the poll on election day, because they believe that their vote does not count, because the politicians and the system of politics in city, state, and local government is corrupt anyway.
So you've always had a lot of voter apathy on municipal elections that traditionally were held in the springtime, not associated with national elections or statewide elections, and you just haven't had a lot of voter participation. But I do agree that there is this ennui, this apathy, because people are beginning to feel like there's nothing, everything's just going to get worse and nothing's going to change. No, and to answer your question, I don't want to assume corruption that hasn't been laid out clearly. We don't know. The federal government has actually sealed most of that investigation, sealed some terms of the plea when you're focused on the city of Houston, and that suggests there's more to come.
Exactly.
Right? That suggests that this early plea, he is going to act as a cooperating witness, and the allegations that against him were that he was taking a bribe to expedite, some sort of permitting process for a business, to expedite a transition of a business's permit from a bar to a restaurant so they could open during the pandemic. And I get it as a business owner, right? I get when you're facing losing your business and you're terrified and everything's been locked down and everything's getting ruined from bad policy.
But also, do you remember Mayor Turner's former law partner was in line to get a multi-million-dollar contract also with the city?
That was with hurricane relief.
Exactly.
And there was also,
and now look at that. How in the hell can your former law partner be in line to get a multi-million-dollar contract with the city, and his former law partner is now the head of the city? Look, it just doesn't look good. And not, as a politician, not only what you do must be right, what you do also must look right, Charles. And even if nothing was corrupt about it, the mayor has to understand just the imagery of it looks like there's some type of corruption involved.
Well, the thing with the law partner, it was a contract concerning the allocation of funds from the hurricane relief, and there was an argument that this person didn't have any experience engaging in that type of business. So it's unusual not only to have it be a former partner, a business partner, but also when you look at the experience. But that was also the issue with the corruption allegations against Lena Hidalgo's staff that's led to the 3 indictments. And there's no way she's divorced from that, right? It was her core team making a decision that she was uniquely involved in, right? But it was the award of an outreach COVID contract. We're talking about billions of dollars. Like, COVID has resulted in taxpayers' money being directed all over the place, much like the hurricane. And whenever there's a whole bunch of government money available, there's a feeding frenzy. And the concern is when it's going to friends, when it's going to cronies, when it's going to people that lack the experience. With Lena Hidalgo's office, this outreach program, you had someone that was a paid political consultant that had worked on campaigns both on the federal level, the state, and the local level for other Democrats, for people that, Adrian Garcia for one, the people that Lena Hidalgo works with closely. You take that person and you award them a contract of in excess of $10 million, right, to engage in outreach for vaccination and things when there's no experience with that type of outreach. Well, but you had UT Health. You had an organization involved with health.
They were completely overlooked.
Well, they had a bid that was ranked higher.
And it was rigged
almost
to fail.
half the price.
And it was rigged to fail.
And they were going to use medical students to engage in outreach as opposed to just random strangers.
But one of the employees of the 3 in Lena's office has already agreed to cooperate and pled guilty.
Well, and that would
it's a disgrace what's going on,
when you
Charles.
see, and I was not aware of that, but that's one of those things where you see someone cooperating, it suggests there was someone higher up there trying to get, right?
I've been told by a very highly placed source that one of the 3 will plead guilty and that they will cooperate. Let me tell you something. Then Lena already started attacking the current sitting Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg.
All right.
Saying that it was a political witch hunt and that she believed she would be indicted. Here it is, the county elected official is interjecting herself publicly into an ongoing criminal investigation of her own office against the current Harris County DA, who are both elected females who are Democrats. Well, the bottom line is, Charles, the people have lost faith in city and local government, man. And it's not just on a local and city level, it's all across America that the people are losing faith in the electoral process because they believe that there's so much corruption in politics that their vote doesn't count.
Well, you know, if we focus a little bit on the county, Lena Hidalgo has accused Kim Ogg of engaging in a political witch hunt, and the very corrupt mainstream media, and I'd hate to blow that horn, but it's very true. So when you have the New York Times calling Kim Ogg a conservative prosecutor, it's designed to frame it as a Republican attacking a Democrat. But the truth is, both the district attorney and the county judge are both Democrats, and it's incredibly brave of the district attorney to say, I'm going to set politics down, right? I'm not going to do what's best for my party. I'm going to do what's best for Harris County, and I'm going to look into this. And it's incredibly disingenuous and brazen of Lena Hidalgo to claim it's a political witch hunt without substance, right? And of course, there's been funding concerns. We are awash in crime, and yet Lena Hidalgo doesn't want to answer the funding needs of the district attorney's office.
But remember Miss Bernadine Skillen?
Yeah.
The former school board member who just recently pled guilty also a few months ago. And she has also agreed to work as cooperating with the United States government in ongoing investigations, all of them running the same circles, right, the same Democratic circles. And
it's a new political aristocracy that doesn't feel accountable.
To me, it's not about Democrats or Republicans. It's about corruption, period, man.
Right.
And the people have lost faith in the politicians of the city and local government and on the state and federal level also. So what is going to be done, Charles? Unless good people, because good people don't want to run. Why? Because there's so much corruption involved to where they will be so insulted, so attacked, and so much slanderous lies put on them and against them to where they don't want to put their own families through something like that. And these are good people who don't want to run because the politicians and the political system has so much corruption inside of it. 99% in a Fox poll here locally says that they believe that corruption exists, and it's not uncommon, but it's common in this poll. Charles, we're in trouble, brother. And until the people come together and take back your city, state, and local and federal governments, I'm sorry, it's not going to change. The people are the only ones with the real power to send the message to all elected officials that we're no longer playing these corrupt political games. We demand and want change.
Well, I mean, our law enforcement, both on a federal, state, and local level, need to act not attached to politics, right? It shouldn't matter what the underlying political ideology of someone who's breaking the law is, right? Either you're breaking the law or you're not breaking the law, and they should be handled accordingly. But you also have to look at our very broken two-party system. We don't have an open primary here, although we should, right? Because an open primary says no matter what party you're on, everybody's in the primary, and then the two people that are at the top advance. So, but what we have is a primary system that leads itself to extremism and doesn't self-correct. Lena Hidalgo had no issue, despite those indictments, had no issue because maintaining her candidacy for county judge, despite it's very clear that corruption was rampant in her office, right? And they were stewarding money to political cronies. They were wasting and squandering tax dollars while ignoring the very real problems that we are enduring as citizens of Harris County and citizens of Houston every day. Crime is out of control. And in fact, people say, oh, well, it was worse in the 90s. I disagree, right? In the 90s, people reported crime. When you called 911, you didn't hear a recording that said, well, if this is less than $5,000, why don't you go do it on your computer?
It was the big difference. In the 90s, you never had somebody commit a murder and get out on bond to commit another murder.
Well, you also had police respond.
In the 90s, you never had people that go to jail for 2 aggravated armed robberies and a homicide and get back out on PR bonds. Right. That never existed. In the 90s, the criminals in the streets, and a lot of them were our brothers, they clearly understood that the system was not to be played with. Now you got brothers coming back from the jailhouse after being charged with a crime, cracking jokes about the judge and our friends. I'm going to get right out anyway. This is sad, Charles.
I mean, I want people to feel like they get fair judges, but remember, during the pandemic, Lena Hidalgo just threw open the doors to the county jail, the public safety be damned. And who suffers? Who suffers?
Mainly
when
black and brown,
it is
poor black and brown
people of color.
Poor black and brown people.
We need to fix our policing paradigm, right? We need to end the war on drugs and focus on recovery and hospitalization for drug use, and mandatory hospitalization.
But I also
addicts.
don't believe that judges should be allowed to use bonds as weapons of punishment. But what the judges have been doing, not all of them, but way too many of them here in Harris County, have been letting some of the most worst hardened criminals back out on the streets to re-victimize, to commit additional murders, additional robberies of sexual assaults and rapes, and yet it's like a revolving door for hardened criminals to where you don't even need bond money anymore, just get right on out.
Well, see, but our county judge, our administrative official, Lena Hidalgo, she's the first county judge ever to have private security, to have round-the-clock security. We lived in the building I used to have a penthouse in. She lived on a different floor, but this is she lived in one of the safest buildings in town, but she still had to have her private security. Why do you not worry about crime? Why do you want to strip the constables of their patrol divisions? The constables, in my opinion, are the most responsive. They're the most community-oriented policing in Harris County. And it was her goal to try to transition all of those patrols under the sheriff's department and take away these individuals. She actually alluded to neighborhood patrols being racist or bigoted or classist, right? When the fact is, in Harris County, we have the most diverse suburban community in the world, and it was just her trying to inject race politics. But I think she was talking about
certainly. She was speaking about the historical history of policing with these certain policing agencies in Harris County. So she was telling the truth. Maybe it was not in the proper context.
She's trying to strip neighborhoods of having the ability to have constables.
There was a lot of racism with these constables in Harris County precincts. This is true. But what I don't like is we just saw a constable.
So you don't think neighborhoods should be able to have a constable that they pay to work their neighborhood?
You see the constable last week?
Which
Brian
one?
Harris,
yeah,
the former longtime HPD homicide detective.
You mean he was a chief deputy that got arrested?
He retired from HPD, went to work, as a constable, and became an assistant chief. He just got caught up in a prostitution sting operation. Look, man, and then we also see a serious investigation going on into Precinct 1, and some of their deputies involved with some type of sexual molestation of a child and human trafficking. Man, this is crazy.
I don't know
brother.
anything about the I know Precinct 1 has some sort of civil scandal with an employee.
No. You remember the one? You remember what two of his deputies? Yes, two of his deputies were charged with molesting a young girl, and in fact, there was some talk about them being involved directly with human sex trafficking of children involving that particular case. Also,
pretty horrifying.
In fact, I spoke to one of the deputies who was charged in the case, who reached out to me for help. Yes, sir, brother. This is crazy what is going on in Houston, Harris County, brother, with our elected officials.
Well, I don't think you can impute a constable if a couple of his employees commit a crime that you're not aware of. But I will tell you, I don't think it's a fair characterization of the constables, right? Lena Hidalgo's goal was to end neighborhood patrols by calling them racist, right? But the fact is, those neighborhood patrols patrol suburban communities, and the suburban communities typically kick in for a portion of it, and the county covers the other. And it has neighborhood-centric patrols.
But they were showing great preferential treatment to affluent suburban communities to patrol their communities. No, wait a minute, but they were not patrolling the same. But they were patrolling those suburban, affluent white communities a lot different than what they were patrolling black neighborhoods.
So you agree with Lena Hidalgo that the constables shouldn't have patrol officers?
I agree that the taxpayers who pay the salaries of those constables should expect the same type of policing, whether you're in the hood or in the affluent suburban community. I don't believe that the treatment and the standard of that treatment should be based on who's paying on the side. And that's what those suburban communities were doing, were paying extra dollars on the side for preferential treatment. You had cases to where some folks were stopped in these affluent suburban communities to where they were drunk. The constables take them home and not to jail. You had cases that in Precinct 4 too, to where men were assaulting their wives. The constables come there, tell them just go somewhere and separate and enjoy the rest of your evening, but yet the man should have went to jail. But in the hood, when they go find those type of problems, you're going straight to jail. That's a fact.
Okay. I think that any neighborhood that is willing to cover a portion of the cost for a patrol for that neighborhood is doing a great service to this city by allowing there to be more police on the streets. And those neighborhood officers are far more responsive to crime. I remember last time my car got broken into, I waited about an hour and a half. Nobody showed up. I went home, called again. 3 or 4 hours later, someone shows up, and he initially got aggravated at me because I didn't wait at the restaurant. And then we had to get all this. I used to be on the board of the police foundation. I'm a former police officer. I'm not going to listen to this. Just take the report. And I don't like to be abrupt with people. I always try to be nice with everyone. But I think that we need to encourage, instead of defunding the police, and I mean, we've got, Greg Abbott's got a new ad that I think is doing him. I'm not a fan of Abbott, but it talks of Beto actually saying the words defund the police. It was a horrible narrative for America, right? Instead of what I've been advocating for 2 decades is ending the war on drugs, reforming the police paradigm to make it focus solely on victim crime, right? But whenever you're talking about taxpayer dollars, right, and public officials being brazen, and if you'll read about that investigation into Lena Hidalgo and them encouraging people to slam the door on UT Health's bids and do all these various things to steward millions upon millions of taxpayer dollars to a crony of Lena Hidalgo. It's frightening. And when Lena Hidalgo is actively $50 million of law enforcement, of keep community safety programs, she's going to plant trees. One, the trees didn't get planted, but 2, it's just nonsense, right? The citizens of Harris County want safety. We want public safety here.
I disagree with complete defunding the police.
Okay.
Because those who chant defund the police, when their house get broke in, who they call? When their car get broken into, who they call? If their loved one becomes a victim of a violent crime or crime period, who you're going to call? I believe that we should defund bad police officers and bad police departments and agencies.
Fire people that are corrupt.
I do believe that we should not reward police agencies and departments who have a long systemic history of abuse and oppression and violating citizens' rights. We should not reward them with additional funding. We should also make sure that we evaluate the complaints coming into that police agency, ID department, before we just give tens of extra millions of dollars to that type of department. So defunding is not the answer, but making sure that we fund the right police departments, the good ones, and making sure that we don't continue funding the bad ones. But total defunding the police department, that's not going to work, because when you defund the police, what are we going to replace them with?
Well, that's the whole thing. I mean, you look at New Orleans, the murder capital of this country right now, they're sending civilians to investigate murders. You got the mayor talking about keeping the police safe. You got a city awash in crime. Here, when you see corruption, when corruption's at the top, like with Judge Hidalgo, How do you expect any better? Of course we need accountability and transparency in policing. That's why I've been talking about the need for cameras in all police officers for 15 years.
Right.
Cameras protect good police from bad people and good people from bad police. We need transparency. We need accountability. But when you have a county judge who's absolutely corrupt, right? Very clearly, absolutely corrupt, willing to send millions of dollars of taxpayer money, and yet the Democratic Party still puts her up. She's dodging a debate. She says the debate isn't worth her time.
At this point,
if
Charles,
the people aren't
she has not been charged with anything, Charles.
Okay.
At this point, we have to be honest.
Well, but there's
Ms.
corruption in her
has
office.
not been charged with anything.
So you're supporting her candidacy.
What I'm supporting is that Ray Charles can see what's really going on.
Okay.
What I'm supporting is Stevie Wonder.
Are you supporting Lena Hidalgo or her Republican opponent, Alex Miller?
I'm not supporting either one, to be honest with you. What I am supporting is change. What I am supporting is systemic.
So you're supporting her Republican
systemic,
opponent?
Holistic change.
Okay.
And I believe it's time, Charles, that there be some serious change in city, local, and state politics and government, man. And to me, it's not about Republican and Democrat anymore. I think that's been poisoned with the people.
I agree.
We have to vote for the people who have the right agendas, who got the right hearts, who truly love the county and the city, and who want to do right by all of its citizens. If we continue playing this Democratic Republican game, then what we're doing is playing party politics and voting for what's in the party's interest and not what's in the best interest of the citizens. And I'm about change that's in the best interest of the citizens.
So you say that, and at me, I'm like you. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I never have been. I've voted in both primaries. I've voted for all different candidates. But let me be unequivocal, right? Judge Hidalgo, whether she was involved or she was merely the steward of the ship that allowed it to happen, has, during her tenure, has led to her having private security and police while our county has deteriorated in awash in crime, and she has attacked their funding and attacked the constable's ability to deliver safety. You talk about the chief deputy that got arrested for prostitution. I personally think that if it was human trafficking or something horrible, then it should be a crime. If two adults want to do something, it's not the government's business, but that's a felony. He knew it was a felony because when he entered into if the allegations are true, when he went to the hotel to meet someone, and you can't, if you're a police officer, you can't break the law.
And we can't say that he was naive. Of course, he knew the law.
But when you are, but I don't care, right? If two adults want to
make
a bargain for sex, I don't know.
But that's a separate discussion. Because I agree with you.
Right.
If two adults want to have consensual sex for a price,
right,
that's between him and her or him and them.
It's horrible.
But I don't believe that we, as the people, should care about whatever the hell they're doing.
Right.
Just you do it behind closed doors. And if it's consensual, that's between you all. Because I'm going to tell you something. Men pay for sex every day in America. Men pay for sex every day in America. Talk to a lot of married men. And a lot of married men will tell you the truth. They pay for sex every day. So just because he goes and pays for one in the hotel room, many men go home and pay all the bills and have to schedule an appointment for some sex. So we cannot pretend that
you
men
must
ain't
know a
paying for
lot of
sex every
people
day.
in bad relationships, but I will tell you, when it comes to Lena Hidalgo versus Alex Miller, I've never met Alex Miller.
Me neither.
I don't know her, but let me tell you something. I can't support a corrupt candidate. Lena Hidalgo is a corrupt candidate. I don't care if her opponent was libertarian, communist, socialist, Republican, conservative, Democrat, whatever, as long as there's a possibility that she's going to be an honest steward of her money, then, but Lena Hidalgo won't even debate her.
But what I will say is this: the fact that Lena Hidalgo, and if it's true that she said this, that debating Miss Alex Mueller, is not worth her time.
It's a disgusting statement by a cowardly candidate.
I believe that if she truly said that, then she's unworthy of re-election.
Right.
Because we, the people, deserve to see you and her debate the issues.
Right.
It's worth and valuable to the citizens of Harris County. But for you to take a personal position, say it's not worth your time, then that says a lot about you and how you feel about your elected position.
But she can't defend
herself.
herself.
And I've been saying this for a long time, Charles. Too many politicians see the people as servants of them when they were elected to be servants of the people. And so if Miss Alex Mueller, if her heart's in the right place and she wants to help clean up Harris County, well, then I believe she's on the right path. Right. And if God wants her to be elected, well, then that day will take place soon here in Houston, Harris County. But I don't like Ms. Hidalgo saying that she's not worth her time to debate. I think that was a mistake.
Well, I mean, the county judge knows she can't defend her record. She can't defend what's going on in her office or what went on in her office. and she is overconfident, in my opinion, about the people in Harris County just voting Democrat, just voting Democrat, just voting Democrat no matter what. And honestly, we've got to get to the point where we have nonpartisan open primaries, so we take out the extremism. There's plenty of extremism on the right too. Like, don't get me wrong, right? I'm not someone that just sees the horrible, but we're talking about what's going wrong in Harris County right now. Democrats run the city, Democrats run the county, and both of them are driving right into a ditch. Democrats are running this country, and it's being driven into a ditch. We need to change. We need to make some changes.
And that's the sad part, Charles, right? Because it looks like one party is behind the crime wave in America, which I know that's not the facts.
Right.
But the appearance is the problem. And as an elected official, they must always remember not only what you do must be right, what you do must also look right.
Right.
And the way this looks, it looks bad. So we're going to find out what the citizens of Harris County want in a few short days.
Well, I'm glad that me and you agree that Alex Mueller should be the next county judge.
I would agree that if she is to win, it's by the grace and permission of God. And if that's what God wants, she will have it. If God does not want it for her, there's nobody who can give it to her.